Hello crypto friends, welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing when will Bitcoin hit its next all-time highs. Okay, so this is a question that a lot of people try to answer, but they have their variations of answering. And a lot of times though, it almost comes off as a guess. Today, I'm going to try to provide as much statistical data to try to prove my backing as to why I believe Bitcoin will hit its next all-time highs within, or I should say in the next 3+ years, okay? And at that point, I'll also discuss what is going to be its, I guess, quote unquote, its next all-time highs. I don't have an exact number, but I do have an estimate, all right? And mind you guys, before we get into it, I'm not a financial advisor, so everything and anything that I say, please take it with a grain of salt, all right? Anyways, so let's get right into it. So the first way of utilizing of when it's going to be its next all-time highs, we first have to look at what's known as the log scale. So you guys probably don't remember this because it's been a long time, but earlier this year, sometime around January, February of 2017, actually this year, 2019, I had uploaded a video regarding if Bitcoin had hit its bottom, right? And in that video, I discussed that the log scale, this chart right here, had actually pointed out that we had already hit its bottom at around 3,100. This was during a time period that a lot of people were discussing, saying, no, we're going lower. We're going to 2,100. We're going to 1,000. But according to log scale, we had already hit its bottom. Well, fast forward a few months later, about 6 months later, and now the log scale is saying that we hit its local top. All right. And I don't have the equation pulled up on this. I will probably link it in the description below for you to calculate this if you would like to follow along with the log scale. But every few months or so, I will be updating you guys with this log scale because it has been following it for the past 10 years, since Bitcoin's inception, since when it was around 10 cents. This log scale has been following Bitcoin's price for a long time, and it has yet to fail, meaning that as long as Bitcoin continues to follow this log scale, like the way it has been for the past 10 years, this is going to give us a good data representation of what could happen in the future for like the next 10 years or so, okay? And so if you pull it up on the charts on a long-term basis, essentially this is how it looks like from a long-term perspective. Of course, I can't go back to 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010 because we just don't have that kind of data right now. The only exchange that can provide us with as much information right now is Bitstamp, and Bitstamp only goes back towards late 2011. So that's as far as I can go back. But utilizing this information, it can give us some really good key points to understand, how the log scale works. So essentially, once we pull up, of course, it's log scale, right? You click on log scale. We're able to find that Bitcoin has this linear curve right here. All right. Over time, as long as Bitcoin keeps growing, eventually, markets end up, accentuating and curving, right? And that gives us a good representation of, how price action works, that eventually price does slow down over time. Anyways, I'm kind of dragging this on a little bit, but essentially, if we continue to follow the log scale the way we have been for the past 10 years, and it states that the next all-time highs won't be for another 3+ years, well, what's going to happen to its current price action? That's the question that a lot of people have. Well, I know that a lot of people, especially in the crypto community, would like to see Bitcoin, skyrocket, right away into all-time highs within the next couple of months or by the end of this year. But according to log scale, we will be trending sideways for at least another year or so, right? Maybe just a little year and a half. According to this log scale, this is technically around 14,000 was its local top for the year, meaning that Bitcoin will very likely not ever reach 14,000 for a very long time. All right, so this means that maybe perhaps in the near future, it is very possible that Bitcoin will eventually revert back towards its linear log scale progression system, right? So eventually we could probably see lows of Bitcoin at around 6,000, 7,000. I don't know, right? I don't have an exact price. It could be 8,000 for all we know, right? It could be way up here, it could be way down here. But eventually it will have to revert back towards that long-term support structure. And so then that gives us another, bounce off this, long-term support. And we end up again touching on that long-term regression system. And then again, bouncing back down it. And notice every single time, as time progresses, this log scale ends up, curving upwards. So it goes higher and higher, meaning it's very likely that we will never, ever see Bitcoin at 3,000 to 4,000 ever again. So if you bought those lows, you're fine. All right. You literally bought the bottom. All right. You're never going to see those prices ever again. But with that being said, we won't be seeing new all-time highs for a while. And if we continue to follow this log scale, it is very likely that we will start to break out by the end of 2020 into 2021, right? Probably around that time, usually because around a late Q4 of every year, that's when we see a lot of movement, right? Huge momentum towards the upside. And so it wouldn't surprise me if it was around that time that we would start to break out. Of course, the log scale cannot predict minimal price action. I can't predict what's going to happen next week or in the next couple of months. It can only give me long-term prediction styles, right? So it can only give me what it believes is going to happen on a long-term basis, right? Within a year or so. And so this was why I don't have accurate depictions of price on a short time frame. But anyways, with that being said, if we continue to follow the log scale like the way we have been, technically we're going to reach all-time highs, and according to this, by the year 2021 into 2022. All right. Like I said, it's going to be in about 3 years that we reach its next all-time highs, right? So if you pull up the date range, right, from now to then, that puts us at around 1,000 days or so. And that is around the time that we will probably end up reaching its next all-time highs. And like I said before earlier in this video, according to the log scale, like the way we have been following it, if it does continue to follow this price, that means that it'll put Bitcoin at around $100,000 plus, meaning that it can be, higher than 100,000. It can go to 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. Like nobody knows exact price action, but all we do know for a fact that is if we continue to follow this, we will have a new all-time high of $100,000 plus a Bitcoin. So meaning if you hold one Bitcoin today, by the next 3 years, you will have a solidified net worth of $100,000, which is great. There's many ways of acquiring $100,000, but the fact that you don't have to pull in a lot of work, you just have to hold Bitcoin, and within the next 3 years, you will have $100,000. That's pretty great, right? The average person in America, right, the average senior citizen holds about $100,000. So if you are in your 20s today, there's no excuse to not hold at least one Bitcoin, because within the next 3 years or so, that will put you at $100,000 net worth. And I don't know about you, but $100,000 is a lot of money for a lot of people. You can do a lot with $100,000, right? You can get into real estate, you can get into investing, whatnot. And so essentially this kind of concludes the video, right? I believe that Bitcoin in the next couple of years will eventually reach $100,000 by 3 years plus. And again, this isn't based on my personal information. This is based on the log scale that we've been following for quite some time. I don't have its calculation right now. Otherwise, I would pull up its equation. I will probably link it in the description below. But this has been following it pretty accurately for the past couple of years. In fact, I've been following this log scale since back in September of 2018. Back in the day, if you guys remember, a lot of people were pretty bullish on Bitcoin. They were expecting Bitcoin to potentially, break out back over here when it was at 6,000, and then we would potentially begin its uptrend. But that was not the case. we end up dropping another 40%, 50% because its log scale actually had represented that we weren't at its bottom yet. In fact, you can see right here on the log scale that we were just tipping that red line point, and we had to break below it and deviate at least 50% from that. And if you follow, from its past trends, we've been deviating and dropping below that red line at that 50% mark for the past 10 years now. And so that's what solidified that this was its bottom. And of course, following 10 years later, 6 months later, you can see that, of course, we had a strong reaction from that, and we've just been trading it from there. But so let me know what you guys think in the description below. Are you patient enough to wait for, $100,000 Bitcoin? That's only in about 3 years, right? And I know for a fact there's going to be a lot of people that won't make $100,000, or at least have $100,000 saved up in those next 3 years. So, really long term, Bitcoin can be a really, really good investment. But short term, this kind of concludes to my point as well. That still leaves us with a lot of time in between, at least a year minimum, at least a year of just sideways price action. And this is something that I've been hammering on for quite some time, is that there's no reason why you shouldn't be trading Bitcoin, why you shouldn't be trading cryptocurrencies. We're in a state where we're just going up and down, right? In this sideways momentum that, it offers a lot of movement, for you to make some profits, right? If you were to short Bitcoin today and let's say it goes down towards its log scale, you can make over 40% on just that move alone. And if you were to long it, right, if you were to long it from its log scale here up again, you make 100% ROI, right? So you're able to double your money in just that short period of time. And then of course, as long as you keep continuing to trade it, it's going to allow you to absolutely, profit tremendously. And this is, again, just with Bitcoin alone. This does not include the altcoins that are much more volatile and offer more gains, in my opinion, if you can trade those properly. And you're able to compound that over time. And by the time maybe, the year ends, or, the time comes where Bitcoin's starting to break out, you will have already made so much money that by the time $100,000 Bitcoin hits, you will, be able to compound that money. You will be a millionaire, right? A multi-millionaire. So there's definitely a lot of opportunities in this market. You just have to learn how to capture them. And as long as you follow this log scale regression, there's no reason why you shouldn't be, ultra wealthy in the next at least 3 years. Okay, so I'll leave you at that. Hope you guys enjoy this little video, and let me know your thoughts. I want to hear them in the description below. Do you guys agree? Do you disagree? Are you disappointed, or are you happy, right? Because there's going to be, I know, a lot of variations of this. So let me know, and I'll see you on the next one.